Animation in Blender is relatively simple. First, select an object with left click, then hit the I key. This will open the keyframe menu. You have any number of keyframes you can insert. I'm going to use a location keyframe. This is at frame 1 at the bottom of the timeline, as we can see. I'm going to go to frame 50, I'm going to move my box down the x-axis, and I'm going to place another location keyframe. Hit I, hit location, and now we can see Blender is interpolating between the two positions as we scrub through the timeline. By default, your Blender project will be running at 24 frames a second. The interpolation between the two frames we see is based on the interpolation mode of the keyframe. If we right click on a keyframe, we can change the interpolation mode. There are three main modes. The first is constant. If we click on constant, we can see there is no interpolation between the frames. As soon as a second keyframe appears, the box jumps to the location specified within the keyframe. The second interpolation mode is linear. Using this, we can see a constant speed between the two keyframes. The final interpolation mode is Bezier. This uses maths to interpret a curve between the two keyframes, making a smooth start and a smooth stop at each end. This is the default in Blender. Finally, we have some other dynamic options such as this bounce, which can give you interesting effects. We'd increase the length of our timeline on the bottom right by increasing the end frame value. Hitting X allows us to delete keyframes from the timeline, and hitting G allows us to move keyframes through the timeline. As well as the location keyframes we recorded earlier, you can record rotation and scale keyframes also, which work in a similar way. If you look on the right, you can see the location axes are green and yellow. When they are yellow, it means they are on a keyframe, and green means they are interpolating between keyframes. As we add a keyframe for rotation, we can see that these controls light up as well. One final and easier option for adding keyframes quickly is the auto keyframe key. We can select this in the center of our timeline next to the scrub left and right button. Once this is activated, keyframes for rotation, scale and location on an object will automatically be saved when they are moved. We can see here, if we scrub through the timeline and move our object with G, we can quickly add many keyframes, speeding up the animation process. If we are actively playing the timeline and we decide to move an object, keyframes will also be saved in real time. This allows us to make some interesting movements. As well as animating objects in our scene, animating the camera is also important. If we hit numpad 0, we can go into the direct view of the camera. A useful way to animate the camera is to use the first person movement option. If we go into our settings, we need to map this to a key. I have mine on Shift F. We can see the setting marked as walk navigation here. Now when I hit Shift F, my cursor will be locked and I'll be able to move the camera in a first person perspective. This allows you to easily line up interesting shots and also record automatic keyframes with your mouse in first person. You can then smooth these later for a cinematic look. And this is the basics of animation in Blender. It might seem simple now, but when you're animating more complex objects such as characters, it can get very, very difficult. I've taught you the basic technical knowledge on how to place keyframes down. However, most of the important stuff you'll be learning in animation is more artistic and based on your skill and experience. This is an example of a complicated character rig I've made in the past. If we switch to pose mode, we can see the bones of the character, and if we rotate these using inverse kinematics, the body will move in realistic ways. To make animation easy, in this model I've used a shortcut where an empty is connected to the bone at the tail of the character, allowing easy up and down movement to make it look like he is riding this piece of wood. And shortcuts like this are what make animation in Blender easy. However, if you go in with high expectations of being able to animate Disney level characters, you will be disappointed. This car is animated using a driver on the wheels, so the movement of the vehicle forward and backwards will automatically animate the wheels as if they were driving on the road. Animating cars and inanimate objects is a good place to start, as characters and emotions are very difficult. I'm happy to answer any questions you have in the comments, and thank you for watching.